Hi guys, and welcome to this video on the full moon in Scorpio that happens on the 23rd of April 2024. Thanks for joining me. It's a pleasure to be with you today. I'm sitting here in the center of town because I wanted to show you the background, but with me sitting and the camera, you can't really see it properly, so I'll just show you this way. It's really cute. I really like it. So I managed to get my printer to work for a little bit this morning. So yesterday I did the weekly horoscope and I wasn't able to do all 12 signs of the zodiac, but today I will be able to do that. So what I'm going to do in this video is I'm going to analyze the chart that you see next to me here. That's a snapshot of the sky at the moment this full moon will take place. And then I'm going to go through each sign of the zodiac from Aries through to Pisces to give you a specific message for your sign. Okay, so I'm in the UK now, so based on my time zone, this happens at 23:48, so just before midnight on the 23rd of April. If you're in North or South America, so west of the UK, then it'll happen earlier in the evening on the 23rd. And if you're on mainland Europe, Africa, or east of Europe and Asia, or Australia, New Zealand, it'll happen later on in the day on the 24th of April 2024. Okay, so I'm gonna have a look at what the planets are doing and what you can expect to be working with here. And I always mention that a new moon and a full moon, they are kind of 3-day events. So the moon is completely illuminated, kind of works its way up to that, and then it wanes away. Same thing with the new moon, where it wanes and gets smaller and darker until it's completely black, and then it starts to get some light again. Okay. So the first thing, obviously, with a full moon is that we have an opposition between the sun and the moon. The sun is at 4 degrees in Taurus. It's 180 degrees away from the moon at 4 degrees in Scorpio. So this is really the moment in the moon cycle, in its 28-day cycle, where it reaches this completion point, and there's a sense of celebration and accomplishment associated with it. People who have a full moon in their birth chart often have a much larger than life personality. They're often very charismatic, they're often leaders, and they're good at operating in the limelight or being leaders because of that personality. So the sun is at 4 degrees in Taurus. The sun is what you're striving towards on a conscious level. It's what you like to embody, so it's kind of aspirational. And 4 in numerology is structure and security. So I'd like to have a nice solid overview of who I am. And Taurus is a fixed earth sign that's also very much about building, being consistent, and kind of creating something that's going to be there for a long time, building something solid. You may disagree with me on this, but I would even associate the number 22 in numerology, master number of the builder, with Taurus, because Taurus is wonderful at taking control of the physical realm, physical circumstances, and adjusting them to meet your needs. So if you want to create income so you can buy a house or whatever it may be, Taurus is very good at rearranging the pieces so that you get to where you want to be. So with the sun being at 4 degrees in Taurus, you're really going to value stability and structure and clarity and things that feel kind of permanent and tangible and solid, right? It then opposes the moon at 4 degrees in Scorpio, and the moon is the way you feel. It's what you have access to internally. And again, it being at 4 degrees, you're going to have a great deal of patience and insight when it comes to your own feelings. And ultimately, and I mentioned this in the weekly horoscope, but I feel that this full moon in Scorpio is an opportunity for self-examination, but not in a kind of shaming, kind of finger-pointing way. You have this amazing sense of your own kind of emotions, the things that are happening subconsciously beneath the surface. It's kind of like those come out of the water and you're able to look at them and you're actually able to see what goes on behind the scenes, so to speak. You know, the beliefs that you've accepted and embraced that may then color your life and the way things work out. So for instance, I'm just trying to, if I have a belief that I am not good enough, right? And if I'm not aware of that, I'll carry it around and it's going to show up in everything that I do. So that's what this is. Scorpio is a water sign that's very good at getting to the very depths, to identifying the root cause of a situation. And this full moon, we're being showered with this Scorpio energy, so there's a ton of it coming in, and you'll be able to use that to patiently and lovingly and calmly examine what's going on for you, and you'll be able to make any changes that you would like to make. So if you feel like, you know, this belief doesn't pay off anymore, this doesn't make me feel good, this is not empowering, then you have the courage and the ability and the sort of know-how to say, okay, I'm either going to let go of this, or I'm going to adapt it, or I'm going to replace it with a new thought, and then what follows, a new feeling, so that my inner environment is more palatable and beautiful, and that I actually enjoy spending time internally within myself. So that's actually a nice kind of image. If you could see your inner environment, what you're feeling, what you're thinking, what happens in your world, right? If you could redesign that, what would it look like? What kind of environment do you want it to be? Would you want it to be a theme park, or a forest, or a nice garden, or maybe a pool? I think those kind of things are really useful to look at, because symbols and images, they can often become very concrete and solid. And here with this full moon in Scorpio, what's lighting it up is the sun in Taurus. This is about, I want to kind of create new guidelines and structures for myself and what happens within that I'm now going to implement and make permanent. So you see, this is kind of a really grown-up energy where it's like, take accountability and take stock of where you are, but not again in this shaming kind of difficult way. It's much more about, we're doing this for our benefit. This is a good thing to do so that everyday life becomes a little sweeter. Okay, so the moon then forms a lot of connections with other things in the chart. So it obviously opposes the sun, but then it also squares Pluto in Aquarius at 2 degrees. I made a separate video on Pluto in Aquarius. I really feel that the shift we had of Pluto going out of Capricorn and into Aquarius in January this year is the beginning of a new era for the next 20 years pretty much. And it's much more about the rebirth of ideas. It's about being a humanitarian, doing things that are going to have a positive impact on the greater whole. And it's also thinking in ways that aren't only about you, but are for humanity as such. Pluto is the phoenix rising from the ashes, so it's rebirth. So this era is going to be about people communicating, working together, invention, science, ideas, education, and looking at the community rather than just the self. So it's really interesting with the connection to the moon then, which is so personal. It's your feelings. It's the most intimate part of the chart, I would say. The square to this huge outer planet Pluto in Aquarius, very unemotional, right? Aquarius is an air sign, even though it's known as the water bearer, but it's really about ideas and facts and figures and communication. So the connection of that, I feel, is really responsible for giving you all of these new ideas when it comes to yourself, and also this sense that there is more to discover. I had a moment like that yesterday, where I realized something about myself, and I'm like, that's so surprising, you know, because I've been around, I've been in this kind of operating system for like 40 something years now. Really, there's still new things to discover? So it's even just that open-mindedness that yes, there are other things about myself that I don't know just yet, even if I have spent years in meditation or therapy or connecting to the higher realms. Something new is going to be delivered to you here via your feelings or your thoughts that then affect your feelings. And it's really a useful building block in terms of, yeah, shifting your identity, your characteristics, your personality in such a way that it works better for you. I'm sorry, I'm laughing because I'm really sitting in the middle of the town and certain people are wondering what I'm doing, talking to the camera here in the middle of the lawn. Okay, and then we have Pluto in Aquarius. It then squares the sun in Taurus. So if you look at the center of the chart, the inner wheel, we have that big red line between the sun and the moon, and the red line between the moon and Pluto. This kind of closes that up and creates a red triangle, and that's called a T-square. And it's an area of friction, and with the peak, as in this case, Pluto and Aquarius, that's really the solution to the friction, to the tension. And the sun and the moon opposing each other, do I take control of the physical world and just put one brick on top of the other? Or do I take control of the emotional world and really do the building on that inner level? And you know what I'm going to say, right? Which one I think is more productive and conducive here? With this being a full moon in Scorpio, the inner building blocks are really what's significant. So if you have a lot of work at the moment, or if you can't just, take the day off and say, I'm gonna stare at the trees and contemplate my life here, then please do just give yourself a little bit of time to look within, because it is like you're being given a crystal ball as to your inner world. And it would be a missed opportunity, I feel, not to take stock of that. On the flip side, if you think that as a person, you are absolutely perfect, and if you feel that, good for you. I applaud you feeling that way. That must be amazing. And you don't absolutely have to do any kind of inner work. Then Scorpio is water. It allows you to see things clearly. You can still make sense of things in a physical way then, and look more at the practical side of things. Depends on where you're at. Okay, then the moon forms a sesqui square, so it's 135 degrees away from Saturn in Pisces. And a sesqui square is another red line. This is it's the dotted red line. It's still about friction and things kind of coming together in an unusual way. The moon in Scorpio, again, very sensitive. And now this outer planet, same as Pluto, Saturn, is about structure and security. And it's very much about having a concrete slab and a solid foundation on which you can build your life, your house, your identity, right? And it's at 15 degrees in Pisces. 1 in 5 is 6. In numerology, that's a temporary opportunity. And Pisces is the final sign of the zodiac, which is very much about hindsight. I've ended my journey. I've gone through the first 12 zodiac signs. And now it's about taking stock of where I've been and what I've learned and what I've contributed and what the next part of my journey is. Once I finish things here on a spiritual level, what am I going to move on to and what am I going to explore then? So Pisces is very much about the bigger picture, but also the spiritual kind of unmanifest side of life. And Saturn at 15 degrees in Pisces, forming this connection, again, allows you the time and the patience and the calm and the quiet to look at your inner motherboard, how the setup has been connected, and if you want to disconnect certain things or reconnect others, then you'll have the confidence and the ability to do that very well. So it's kind of like reprogramming yourself in a way. So I don't mean any of this, I'm just thinking as I'm talking, I don't mean any of this to be like, oh, you're not perfect, there must be something wrong with you have to adapt yourself. I think the best way of changing is through self-love. That process actually allows you to make the changes and your kind of body and your ideas catch up over time. When you criticize yourself, and again, you point the finger and you say, there's something wrong with you, you need to change this. And as far as my experience has been, you make very little progress there because the criticism can often stop you dead in your tracks. So approach yourself with a kind of loving eye, with a gentle touch, and you will be able to build these solid new things which you can rely on in future. These don't necessarily directly connect to the moon, but they do connect to Saturn. Mars is next to Saturn. It is 9 degrees away from it, so it's still conjunct. And then we have Neptune next to Mars. That doesn't conjunct Saturn. I use 10-degree orbs in my charts. But I feel they're still near enough Saturn to be significant and to influence it. So Mars is ambition and drive. It's a personal planet. So in your birth chart, again, looking at where Mars is very important, because that's where you'll notice your ambition and your drive and your kind of power emerges. And here Mars is at 24 degrees, so we've got another 6, a temporary opportunity, and it's in Pisces. So I want to gallop off into the spiritual realms so that I can meet myself there as such. I can see what I look like in spiritual truth. I can have a conversation and possibly iron out any wrinkles and get back on the same page as myself on a spiritual level. So you're like channeling yourself in a way. This is so fascinating to me, this full moon. I love it. Scorpio is always fascinating because it's really about the most intense, personal, kind of emotional building blocks of who we are. And you see, the thing about Scorpio, getting to the depths, it's not just to torture yourself and to say, oh, look at all these things that I still need to alter. It's about identifying them so that they can be healed in a gentle, loving way. Neptune, the water planet, fantasy, love on a global level, romance, the idea of love rather than love. the concept of love. At 28 degrees in Pisces, 2 and 8 is 10, that's 1 in numerology, and that's the vibration of the pioneer, the magician, the boss, the person who initiates. And in Pisces, it really allows you to become a spiritual adventurer and to go off into these spiritual realms. And I'm making it all sound very grand, you know, it's not like you have to go on a vision quest here. You can just have a moment with yourself and say, how am I feeling? And that's what I mean. But Neptune at 28 degrees in Pisces, one, opens the spiritual realms to you so you can access them easily without having to do a vision quest. And then secondly, being at 1 degree, it gives you the confidence to say, I'm going to jump into this, the unknown, and see what comes up. Which for a lot of us, the unknown is very frightening because it could be less than pleasant. So whatever is there for you, you're not going to let anything put you off, and there will be this ease of finding yourself in the ethers, so to speak. Let's see what else. So the moon, I mentioned the square, I mentioned the sesqui square. Those are the only connections that the moon makes in itself, which is interesting because when the moon forms a lot of connections, it's going to be influenced by each thing, right? But the only influences here are Pluto and Aquarius, so ideas about the self, and this connection with Saturn in Pisces, this nice spiritual concrete slab which I can use to kind of have a look around rather than sinking into one feeling and then losing it and then becoming distracted. But there are lots of other things going on that I do want to mention. The sun is in Taurus, I mentioned that, but next to it, also not conjunct because they're too far away, but nearby in the same sector are Uranus and Jupiter in Taurus. So Uranus is really anything could happen, and in Taurus it's nothing is solid. We're going to throw everything up in the air and rebuild it. So you see things that seem opaque at other times, that are unmovable, unchangeable, now suddenly become changeable, like putty. And then Jupiter, the planet of everything good and everything big and everything wonderful and positive, is at 22 degrees, master number of the builder, in Taurus. So you may argue with that. You may say, well, Greg, if Jupiter is at 22 degrees in Taurus, shouldn't I focus on my physical circumstances, my practical circumstances, and devote myself to those? Possibly, but what I feel is that, yes, you have an ability to be productive and to make changes in a real world sense, but it's really about diving in and making the inner changes so that when you emerge from your trance, from your kind of reverie within, right, that you reappear as a more solid individual who knows themselves even better and who can then echo that sentiment and expand it into the real world and create security. You know, I'm a big believer in these laws of the universe, as above, so below, as within, so without. If my inner environment is a toxic wasteland, then I feel, and again, it's not victim shaming because the person with the toxic inner environment isn't going to feel particularly well, right? But I feel that then is going to show up much more via the physical world for that person. You could say like attracts like, or you could say whatever exists in spiritual truth is going to exist in physical truth, or whatever exists within exists without. So that's why this is such a fabulous opportunity to tidy things up internally so that the real world can catch up and provide you with things which match you on a vibrational, energetic level. We also have Venus, Chiron, and Mercury in Aries, and we also have the North Node in Aries, and they don't touch the moon specifically, but they are near the sun. Again, not conjunct, they're too far away. Venus is love and beauty and creativity. Again, a personal planet. The three personal planets are Mercury, communication, Mars, ambition, drive, sexuality. Venus, creativity, love, new beginnings, giving life to something, being selflessly loving. And Venus at 23 degrees in Aries, 2 and 3 is 5, which is freedom in numerology. And Venus in Aries is very focused on finding someone or something that she loves. And here next to the sun, it says you have the freedom to, again, gallop off into yourself and to find all of those things that you'd like to change, but also to find things that you love about yourself that you may not be consciously aware of all the time. And that would really serve you if you remembered them. Chiron is the wounded healer, 20 degrees in Aries. It says I want to, again, make that connection with my own self, get rid of any blocks, any challenges that keep me away from myself so that healing can occur. And then Chiron also in my ear is saying, thank you, Saturn and the moon in Scorpio, for setting the stage so I can do this inner healing work. Mercury is at 16 degrees in Aries, and remember it's still in retrograde until the 25th. So we're in the last few days of it. And this also makes perfect sense if you look at it this way via the full moon. When Mercury is retrograde, you're able to see things differently. And I know I'm starting to repeat myself, but this is the chance then to see yourself differently, to highlight the good stuff, to become aware of some of the things that are less than ideal and how you can detox them. Next to that is the North Node in Aries, and on the other side of the chart we have the South Node at 14 degrees in Libra. So where you're coming from is really saying, you know, I manage my life and my relationships and what I'm doing and all these different aspects, self-care, you know, children, income, career, living situation. You're going away from that, and what you're moving towards is the North Node at 14 degrees in Aries, and ultimately that's what this is about. How can I be freer in myself? How can I not feel like a prisoner in my own system? I don't know if you guys have had that experience, but for me, the first thing obviously that comes to mind is addiction, right? When you're addicted to a substance, even if you don't want to take it, you can't help yourself and you have to. It's like being a slave to a substance. It's an awful feeling. And there are other things, not as drastic as that, but what I mentioned at the very beginning of this video, you know, certain characteristics that we may not be aware of, and then those then from behind the scenes govern our lives in a certain way. Become aware of those, say thank you, I don't need you anymore, bye-bye, I'm going to be free now. And that's ultimately what this is about. On a spiritual level, this Scorpio full moon is urging you to move in a direction where life feels freer and lighter and more enjoyable, and you're not a hostage in your own body. Sounds very dramatic. Okay, let's see what else. So we've got those. I'm just looking at Black Moon Lilith at 22 degrees in Virgo. That again doesn't connect with the moon at all, but it opposes Mars and Neptune in Pisces. And this is, wow, really good, because it says, you know, we're not doing this to be self-critical. We're doing this to provide a more harmonious inner environment. And really, there isn't any risk of this being overly critical. Sorry to go off track again, but I remember I knew well, she was a girl at the time, I was a boy. And what I found so hysterical is in the evening, what she would do is the sleep test. She would close her eyes, and if images came, she knew she was ready for bed. And if the images didn't come, then she'd have to stay up a little longer. I thought that was such a brilliant system, and I've just remembered it. This is the same thing. It's not the sleep test, right? But it's during this full moon in Scorpio, you don't even have to close your eyes. You're just able to be in your own feelings, and the images will come. The doors to the inner realms will open, and you can just walk on through. Strongest mode on the day is fixed. So I'm doing this for longevity, for long a restructuring that's going to be very long term, or ideally permanent. And then the strongest element of the day is water. Water, the element that is about connection to the higher realms, to other people, love, creativity, and healing. So that also makes a lot of sense. Okay, so that is the chart in a nutshell. So I'm going to look at the computer for each sign of the zodiac, and this is a bit of a struggle because it started raining now and the computer is going to get wet. So let's see. Okay, let's see. Okay, let me just get this going, and then I'm going to start with Aries. Just need to put my password in. Come on. Okay. So, Aries to Pisces. Aries, You're going to find this full moon in Scorpio a magical time when it comes to business dealing. So for you, it's the inner stuff, more confusing because you also have the opportunity for external structures. So for you, balance is important. So business, as well as your connection to big organizations, things like the tax authority, the government, probate, inheritances, any of those formal discussions are going to go really well for you. So for you, it is important to balance inward and outward. Taurus, you are very likely to feel massively empowered during this 3-day full moon period. You're the luckiest of the zodiac signs during this time in the sense of personal well-being, plans working out nicely, and you also have a particular aptitude for your relationships with other people, so also a bit of balancing for you. Taking a relationship to the next level, interviewing, all of those things are supported. Ultimately, Taurus, for you, it's I am so certain of my feelings. I know exactly what I feel about another person, so I know what to do now. We either move in together or we get married or whatever it may be. Gemini, you may suddenly realize in a flash of brilliance how you can realize your dream. You'll be able to find the solution, especially for things that have seemed impossible in the past. Cancer, you're going to feel very in control of the inner world and what you're doing on a working level. If you've been trying to make a 5-year plan around your work or even your practical circumstances, in order to anticipate what comes next or to have a good idea of year 1, I'm doing this, year 2, I'm doing that, you'll find it easy to get all your ducks in a row. So for Cancers, it's not so much about the inner retrieval of things, it's about, I feel really good and solid already, so I'm just going to translate that into practical action. Leo, you're surprisingly going to have a very easy time during this full moon. The areas of family life, travel, education, as well as your work are massively supported. Pick whatever area of your life needs the most work and turn things around for yourself significantly. So for you, it's not about having to balance so much, you're naturally balanced. You can do the inner work, although I don't think you're going to find too much that requires a lot of time and effort. And again, you can use that emotional security then and apply it to your practical circumstances. Virgo, you may have a tendency to overshare here. The reason for that is, Virgo, is that this full moon is going to prompt you to detox on an emotional level, on a spiritual level. So talking and getting it out that way is good, but just make sure that if you are kind of detoxing by speaking to another person, that you're speaking to someone you trust and you're not talking to someone who's then going to go around the whole town like telling your secrets and your story, right? So consider journaling, letter writing, and then burning them. But ultimately for you, it's about getting the sludge out, the toxicity out, and feeling lighter and better. Libra, the added intensity of the full moon in Scorpio may make you question even your most serious relationships and long-lasting relationships. So if you find yourself hitting the block button on your phone to someone you've known for years, and it's over the slightest issue or disagreement, really be wary and give other people the benefit of the doubt. For you guys, Libra, it's the looking within, of course, is very possible, but for you, you take on this tack almost as in, hey, I'm doing the inner work. Why aren't they doing the inner work? I don't want to be connected to you anymore. It's very extreme, it's over the top. So if you find yourself reacting in extreme ways, just hold off on that. Scorpio, this is your full moon. So you're gonna have a good time. But in contrast to Libra, you may become very, very clear on your true feelings for another person. So if you, again, want to make it exclusive or get a dog together, you're going to know exactly what you want and you'll find it very easy to commit to it. And even though Mercury is still in retrograde, you can trust your feelings. Sagittarius, you may have to make a choice here between your own integrity and money. For you, it's like, do I look within and change these things, or do I ignore myself completely and just focus on making cash? So you're very extreme via this full moon in Scorpio, and I think it's because Scorpio is very much about control, and you guys aren't about that at all. You're about exploring and letting yourself be surprised and having the miracles kind of delivered to you. At the same time, you may also find lavish displays of wealth really offensive. And if you've noticed feelings of resentment coming up, particularly around money, you're able to use this full moon in Scorpio to examine your own relationship with money. And if there are negative beliefs around it, to adapt those and to change them. Because money is very sensitive to that kind of thing. Money is an energy, right? So if you're like, money is the root of all evil, I want nothing to do with it, then I think money will hear you and will say, okay, we're not going near that person. So I'm exaggerating, right? But it's that kind of vibe. Capricorn. You're really in feeling mode here, and you're going to want to spend time with those you love. So this overwhelming emotional landscape that's being presented to you, you might find that a little frightening, and you may want some support via people around you. Don't expect too much from other people this week, especially when it comes to emotional understanding. Mercury is still in retrograde. It might be that they don't exactly understand what you're trying to say. If you have a lot of work on at the moment, Capricorn, make a concerted effort. You're going to be very, very interested in looking inward, and you're not going to be interested so much in looking outward during this period. Aquarius. It's likely that you hear about a work opportunity in the media or via a friend. It reveals an idea you hadn't considered before within. It's going to strike an inner nerve. So you're getting the revelation both by looking within and by something you hear or overhear. And if any kind of opportunity like that comes along, pay attention to it. It's likely to work out well. And finally, Pisces. If you're a Pisces who works creatively, this full moon 3-day period is really the time for you to create your masterpiece. And I'm not kidding. It's so amazing for you guys. Everything lines up perfectly that if you want to create the work of art, the beautiful thing that you've always wanted to, it's likely that you're able to express it during this time. You're able to produce the best work of your life. Okay, so I hope that gives you an idea of what you'll be working with here during this full moon. I'm just putting this in here so it doesn't get wet. I hope it gives you an idea of what you'll be working with during this full moon. I feel it's a fabulous opportunity for self-love and improvement, but love, warts and all, that then leads to improvement, right? So I hope it gives you an idea of what you'll be working with. If you would like a personal reading with me, please get in touch via my website. It's gregoryscott.com. On the front page, scroll down until you see the button that says book your reading to order your reading with me. In my personal readings, to draw up your birth chart, I need your place of birth, date of birth, and time of birth. Don't have the time of birth, then please order a chart rectification on the website first so I can work that out for you. And then once I have the info, I can analyze your chart the way I did that and really see a lot about who you are, what's coming up in future, what locations will work, where you're supported, where you're not so supported. So if you're interested in any of that, please do get in touch with me for a personal reading. I am doing personal readings, even though my internet is still a bit iffy. I've got workarounds. The neighbor has kindly given me permission to use hers while I'm waiting for mine. And there are also places I can go to use the internet. And I have my phone, obviously, which keeps me connected, so that's all good. So I hope you have a great time here during this full moon. To me, it's the kind of full moon where, you should be dancing around in the moonlight. It's just got that dark and re-emergence of self in a loving way quality to it, which I think is just beautiful. So I hope you have a fabulous time. All the best. And check out some of my other videos. I do a daily tarot reading on my channel. So if you want to watch that, please become a member of the channel. The weekly horoscope I did yesterday, so if you want to check that out. And I do other videos as well, which are escaping me at the moment. But check out the channel and see what's there and see if there's anything you like. Please subscribe, share the channel online so other people get to know that I exist. That would be great. And I hope you have a fabulous time. Take care.